Greetings, fellow men. Servus Männer. It's Red Pill Germany again, and today I want to discuss globalism very briefly. You hear this word being used a lot these days, and I want to try to fill this buzzword with a little meaning here. So I want to start by presenting two New York Times articles that deal with globalism. One is from the end of September 2016, so just briefly before the elections, and the other one is from November 14th, so after the election. So in the September article, globalists are portrayed as basically a global family that has a reunion and has a lot of dinners, and they're of course humanitarians and heads of non-governmental organizations and also celebrities, donors, investors, so rich, famous and good people. And they are a family. And the head of their family, their pater familias, is of course Bill Clinton. So the Clinton family is placed at the top of these globalists, who have lofty aims such as finding a solution for global warming and making the world better for refugees and dealing with the refugee crisis and have more international trade. And this is presented as something good, of course, and the article bemoans that these globalists lately feel besieged, that there is opposition to their well-intentioned humanitarian goals. The article doesn't even try to hide that these globalists want to take sovereignty away from national parliaments, transfer it to supranational bodies in order to tackle the world's problems. So the author does not disagree at all that this is going on. Now the second article, that is after the election, focuses much more on globalism as a conspiracy theory of xenophobic, anti-Semitic right-wing nutjobs. This second article states first that there are basically two definitions of globalism, or two ways to think about it. One is the one that I basically just characterized, that is also laid down in this first article, and the second one is just labeled a weird conspiracy theory, like the boogeyman of nationalist white supremacists. But the funny thing is that what is globalism actually is basically the same in both readings. It is just that when liberals say it, it is portrayed as something noble and something good, but when right-wing people say it is horrible and it is undemocratic because it takes away the sovereignty of elected national parliaments and transfers this authority to supranational appointed, not elected bodies of elder statesmen and rich people and investors and so on. So that means when a liberal person says that, it's a good thing. When a right-wing person says exactly the same thing, oh, it's a conspiracy theory, it's crazy, it's xenophobic, it's anti-Semitic, of course. But the essence of what we're talking about here, transfer of power from elected national parliaments to EU or Soviet Union-like states, is actually the very same in both versions. And what I also noticed about the second article, where some professor is interviewed and he says, oh yeah, it's a conspiracy theory, it's evil, it comes from white supremacy. The EU is not mentioned, not in a single paragraph. They mention the EU. And this is so important because the EU is basically a control lab experiment, if you wish, for a world government. And this is not a conspiracy theory. I mean, this is what globalists believe. And I was told this in school. It was in our textbooks. It was on the curriculum. My teachers told me in the 1990s that the EU is a start, and then we transfer power even further and share power with other continents, and in the end the UN will then be transformed into a world government. That was on the official curriculum. This is the globalist agenda. This is no conspiracy theory. That was in textbooks. And it was presented as a positive thing, as a noble goal that we should all work together for. And now when people like Trump call them out on their plans and explain to the common people what this actually means for them and for our democracy and our civil rights, then they say that we are spouting conspiracy theories. So let me tell you, I live in the European Union. Our parliaments are basically losing power now. because most of our laws, or the basis, the guidelines for our laws, are not made in our elected parliaments, but they're made by appointed bureaucrats in Brussels. And then the national parliaments, they can only basically use this leeway that they have, that the European Commission allows them. Yeah? They have a little bit of leeway in how to interpret these guidelines and these orders that they basically get out of Brussels. And if they don't make a conforming law within a certain time span, they will actually be punished, you know. They will have to pay a fine or something like that. So the national parliaments are relegated to actually just implementing what Brussels decides. And this is exactly what globalism is. And just the lefties, they portray this as a good thing, whereas right-wing people and nationalists say that this is anti-democratic, because the people who should be the source of all political power have not elected the people who write the laws and who make the laws. These bureaucrats and lobbyists in Brussels were not elected. The commissioners of the European Commission, basically the government of the EU and the ones who actually propose the laws, they are not elected. And the people who are elected can only change little details afterwards. They're not even asked to begin with. And this is why, to me, it's just laughable if liberals say now that the right-winged media, or for example alternative media, that they're full of conspiracy theorist nut job. As I said, these people on the alternative media, they are just saying what the globalists are saying and what the leftists are saying. They just don't have the same opinion, but they're not saying anything else. They just use different language. The lefties say, for example, oh, we have to empower international bodies, and we have to further international integration and collaboration. But what does that mean? That just means that the power to pass laws, legislative and sometimes also executive authority, is being transferred from an elected national level to some kind of Soviet Union supranational level. And this is all it means. And these people on the right, they just spelled it out for the people. That's all they did. They translated it into common language that can be understood by many people. And now they call it, all of a sudden, just 2 weeks later, they call it a conspiracy theory. It's actually laughable. And one other note on this topic. Again, politicians do what I've said in my previous videos, what they always do when they want to get something passed that is really bad for the people or that is unpopular for the people. What they normally do is they bundle it up together with something that is good and nice and that everyone wants, and they tell the people that these two things can only be had together and not independently. They cannot pick and choose. They have to take the bundle. So for example, we all like free trade. Yeah, I mean, maybe tariffs are okay. We don't need absolutely free trade, but we all like our Samsung phones. People abroad like German cars. I enjoy the fact that I can buy fruit and vegetables in winter also for a little bit of a higher price from other countries where the sun still shines, but I don't have to rely on just pickled vegetables and applesauce in the winter. I can actually buy fresh veggies in winter. I like that fact, and this is called international trade. But Angela Merkel, for example, tells us that all these refugees that are coming right now, they are just the other side of the coin of globalization. And she makes it sound like that if we don't want to take in millions of people that will receive welfare here, then we cannot have international trade anymore. It's just the flip side. It's just the other side of the coin. You cannot have one without the other. Well, I disagree. You know, we have borders. So I think it is in the realm of the possible to distinguish between a car or an iPhone and a human being at the border, okay? And you can selectively decide who or what you let in and who or what you don't let in. and I feel a little silly spelling it out in this clear way, but these politicians actually make it sound like you cannot have one without the other. So don't let the left tell you that globalism is just a right-wing conspiracy theory. There are many articles and many speeches where globalism is actually used as a positive thing by exactly these left-wing groups and politicians and pseudo-leaders. So it is a good thing when they use the word, and exactly the same stuff becomes a conspiracy theory when we use the word. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Have a great day. Servus, Kameraden.